Welcome to Concrete Conversations, the Indian Real Estate Podcast. I'm Yash.
And I'm Akshay, and we're the hosts of the show.
Did you know that the air quality inside your home or office can have a significant impact on your well being and productivity? How do we ascertain the quality of air within our built spaces? What can you do to improve your indoor air quality?
To understand this better with some interesting use cases, we have with us today Abhinav Gupta, the CEO and co-founder of Active Buildings. An engineer by education, Abhinav and his team tackle unique problems relating to indoor air quality by providing technology and data-driven solutions to create a better built environment for residents, managers, and employees.
So take a deep breath and get ready for some refreshing insights on how to improve your indoor air. So hi Abhinav, nice to have you here today.
Hey Yash, good to be here.
So we know about Active Buildings and we know about you just a little bit from the introduction, but let's get into it. Can you tell us a little more about Active Buildings, your company, and what you guys do exactly?
Sure. So I've been running my business here in Bombay for the last 7 years. But Active Buildings as a brand and as a business started out around 2018. And this came from the dire need that we saw in the market, which was based on not just the outdoor air pollution, but the lack of information about what to do in offices or at homes about the bad indoor air quality. So It started out somewhere where we were discussing with a client when we were telling them how to save energy in their building. And they came and told us that, we have these other issues which are far more related to air quality. So in my business, in my core business that I've been running for 7-8 years now, we help other businesses develop sensing mechanisms. And this was the first time we saw that a client of ours, where we were offering an energy saving service, this client came about and told us that air quality is a problem for us, and any solution over there would tremendously help us with our clients. Somewhere that triggered a lot of research in our team. This new demand. We always knew that air quality is going to be a problem of the future. But to see a legit demand in India and a paid customer demand in India, it triggered a lot of research for us, and that sort of kickstarted our journey as Active Buildings. And what happened with that client the first day continues to be our mission today. Whenever we work with a client, we work with a building, our aim, our agenda is to make the air quality in the building as clean as possible, as breathable as possible, as healthy as possible for its people.
Right. So Abhinav, you talked about your client highlighting some issues. What were the issues that they came to you with and said that as opposed to energy saving, these are the issues we'd like to focus on?
So one of the biggest issues that was being faced is this peculiar smell that was coming in the building. And this was a client-facing building. This was a hospitality building. So a lot of clients faced this issue themselves, and they would say they would not rate this particular facility very highly because of these issues of smell. Particularly not just the smell, but also the duration, the time, and the extent of how bad this smell was inside the building.
Right.
We call this as a sick building syndrome. So technically in ventilation, this is a very old term. In the 1970s, people had come up with this term called the sick building syndrome, wherein if your building is built too tightly and it is always centrally air conditioned, you tend to have these spots of really bad air quality, and that tends to make people sick. Right? Generally observed in offices, it is very much observed in any building which is perpetually, or for the majority of the times, ventilated using a central air conditioner.
Right.
Just since we're starting to talk about this, I thought it would be important to make the distinction first. A lot of us, when we think about air quality, we talk about it in terms of outdoor air quality. Given
Correct.
what we see in Delhi, North India yearly, people are coming to realize how it affects their life and their health. So, how do we distinguish indoor air quality from this? How does it factor into our livelihood, and how is it different from these AQI and kind of outdoor air quality metrics that we talk about?
Fantastic. So that's an important distinction that people need to make. What constitutes as outdoor air pollutants and what considers as indoor air pollutants.
Right.
So there are some things which are common. So first I'll focus a little bit on outdoor air. So always when you see pollutants, the first thing you look as what is the source, because the source needs to be controlled for the pollution to be removed. So what are the sources of outdoor air pollutants? You have traffic, which is vehicular traffic, which will release all sorts of your half-burnt fuel. So you will have soot, you will have ash. So we call them PM10 and PM2.5, simply known as particulate matter. So the 10 and 2.5 determine the size. In the most layman terms, it could be dust. PM10 and PM2.5 are some specific terminologies that are used in the medical community to indicate damage.
Right.
So PM10 damages your throats and PM2.5 damages your lungs.
Right.
So these are all particle pollutants from traffic primarily, other places like construction. Other pollutants include NO2 and SO2, which also comes from vehicles, but they come in very small traces. The bigger traces come from burning of chemical residue, which would be your nearby industries. Now the term AQI. So AQI means air quality index. It just tells you on a scale of 0 to 500 how bad things are. It doesn't really tell you how much pollution is out there, and it's a mixture of all the pollutants that I just talked about, and a single index is made, and that is what is the AQI for outdoor air, right? So now I'll come a little bit into indoor air, and we need to understand what the sources of indoor air pollution are.
Right.
So the first source of indoor air pollution is outdoor air, which is primarily consisting of high amounts of PM10, high amounts of PM2.5 or particle pollution. The second biggest contributor to indoor air pollution is human presence.
Right.
So human presence is a very interesting one because it's very counterintuitive as to what are the sources that a human presence can bring. The biggest issue that is faced is in offices. So let me just explain to you another situation, and this is the most typical situation that we've seen in South Asian offices, is that you have a meeting room of 7 people and you have a meeting that's going on for maybe 4 or 5 hours, maybe even a couple of hours. It just takes that much amount of time. And all the people inside are breathing, right? And there is no outlet for this air. There is a limited amount of fresh air that is coming in. So the more people breathe in this meeting room, the more polluted it gets, and the more sleepy, nauseous, or unproductive you feel, because CO2 has that effect on people. So if any of our listeners today have ever felt sitting in the office that I feel drowsy after 2 p.m. or I feel drowsy in long meetings, it's probably the CO2. Right? And it comes not because someone is polluting the air, but it's rather that the amount of fresh air in the room is not enough for the number of people that are breathing in the room.
So could you say that the air in the room is not being recycled?
Right. So it's like this. There are 2 things that people need to look into when they look at indoor air quality, right?
Okay.
Am I removing all the pollutants that the outside air is bringing, and am I limiting the pollution that the human presence is creating in the room? Both those things are it's like a delicate balance, and you need to maintain the balance between the 2.
How would one evaluate their environment at a home, since people might be working from home, or even an office area that they're occupying? What are the symptoms
or things that we can monitor to take note of the air quality or maybe realize that it's not optimal?
So I think, yeah, that's a fantastic question, Yash, because I think today's work from home environment has forced people to start thinking about all these things themselves, right? So the first thing that people need to do is the place I'm staying, how good the air quality is outside. Because I obviously, when I'm at home, I am using windows, I'm using fans, I'm not in the AC always. I'm always interacting with the fresh air. So how bad is my fresh air? Right? What people need to do is people need to regularly check. The second thing that people can do, and it's a service that we have provided to people, is that they can avail of an indoor air quality evaluation.
Right.
Right. So what that includes is it includes putting a monitor in your space, and this device will record the data and will generate a report and give you. And that report will make it very clear what are the basic contributors to your indoor air pollution. Once you have an understanding of that, the report also helps you identify simple measures and means that can help restrict that pollutant right there and as soon as possible.
The technology that gives you the report, other than particulate matter and CO2, are there any other contributors that it looks into and that it assesses? And also, is there, like there is a AQI for outdoor air quality, is there some kind of equivalent index for indoor air quality?
So first is, let me give you a brief as to what is it that we monitor, including PM10, PM2.5 and CO2. There are three more parameters that are considered very important for indoor air quality. The first being temperature. So the report also includes what your air temperature is. Another factor that is not brought into focus many of the times is the moisture content in air, the humidity.
Right.
So extremely dry air and extremely moist air, both are not good for you. Not good for indoor air, not good for your skin, but more importantly, not good for things like spread of viruses or spread of microbial particles. For example, in Mumbai, if in the monsoon season you are using the AC, or sometimes even in the summers when you're using the AC, it is very much possible your humidity is almost 75 to 80%. Okay.
Wow.
And for reference, 100% humidity is when it starts to rain.
Oh, wow.
So that is not good, and that needs to be taken care of immediately using the right type of machines. Right. The third factor is what we call as the chemical pollution. Which comes from using specific type of paints, varnishes, inks, anything that has an aromatic chemical to it. Sometimes even your floor cleaners, they are very harsh chemicals that tend to be absorbed, or they tend to just linger around in the air, and it is damaging. It is damaging for lungs. It's a lung irritant. And that is another factor that is taken into account when we monitor indoor air quality using the technology and the report.
Okay.
So to continue to the second question that you asked, like how you have AQI as a measurement for outdoors, do we have something similar? Unfortunately, at this point, there is no international consensus on what that common factor should be, because indoor air is very complicated. A lot of people try to come up with these terms like AQI for indoors. It's okay to use those terms, but what needs to be understood is that these terms are developed by an individual or by a small organization, and they are not completely adopted as an international standard.
Right.
So, Abhinav, now that we've spoken about, these metrics that we're using and the kind of assessments that you're providing for buildings, is there any fact or incidents that has startled or surprised you or changed the way you look at built spaces, since starting Active Buildings relating to air quality?
Absolutely. So there are two things in the Indian built spaces specifically.
Right.
The first is that we don't put enough fresh air in our office buildings. The fresh air usage in office buildings is very, very, very bad. And that because of two reasons. One, I think, is because we stuff our offices with too many people, right? And the second is that, office managers have this dogma that if I increase the fresh air, my electricity bills will increase. There are ways to increase fresh air, but also keep your electricity bills in check.
Right.
The second insight that I have is that, humidity is not considered as an indoor air pollutant. And a lot of people disregard the impact humidity can have on your infrastructure.
Right.
I have seen humidity damage server rooms. There's too much moisture in air, causing a lot of corrosion and effectively causing disruption of your server system.
Interesting. And since you brought up this point of the trade-off between this dogma of if I ventilate my office, it's going to affect my electricity bills. Can you tell us about the trade-off between electricity and air quality a little bit? The trade-off between, I don't know, is there a sustainability angle to this as well?
There is some amount of energy that is used in cleaning the air. So there always will be some amount of increase in electricity.
Right. And did you ever face any encounters where people have just said, if I need to, create a system to clean the air, I'll just put more plants in my office and that should suck out all the carbon dioxide from my poor air?
Yeah, a lot of times. Unfortunately, we have proven this and with our sensors. So we also, when we do evaluations, we help the client understand where this client was very scientific, right? So this client said, I have been told that plants are going to improve my air quality. So I have bought some plants, but I'm not sure if they're actually doing the job. So how do I know if they're doing the job? So we gave them a solution. We said, okay, let's monitor your air quality for 4 days. And then let's introduce plants and let's monitor your air quality again for maybe a week. Let's see if, it takes a couple of days for the plant to actually do their work.
Right.
But we did not observe any significant change because of adding plants. Plants may work, right? But you need to calculate how many plants are required to offset the pollution that is there inside. You can't just put one plant and say it's going to do the work of 10 plants. That's not possible.
Of course.
Just a Christmas tree.
Yeah.
Or a money plant.
And for a second, let's assume that you find a plant that is actually going to do that. People have done this calculation. You need 5 kgs of plant per person.
Wow.
To offset whatever carbon dioxide that person is breathing out.
Wow.
And on some level that makes sense, right? Like you're a 60-70 kg human being walking around, a 500 gram plant isn't going to offset all the carbon dioxide that you breathe out.
Exactly. Right. So that was the thought process with which the experiment started, and they proved the fact you need 5 kgs of plant at least.
So that was a very interesting use case kind of. So Abhinav, do you have any other interesting use cases like this, especially given the importance of air quality has been heightened in the last year?
Absolutely. So there is I would like to expand on this one particular problem that our clients faced. They call it musky smell.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah.
We were asked to find out the source of the problem, and we found out that the issue actually was the humidity levels,
right,
which was very high. After further discussions, we found out that the way the whole building was running, there were certain places where there were lapses in the ventilation system, right? Not lapses in the sense anything dangerous, but lapses in the sense of bad air quality, right? Or excess moisture in the air, which caused a lot of their ducts to get damaged with fungal growth.
Wow, okay.
And after doing a study for almost 3 weeks, we identified that this particular ducting area was a problem. Now, the challenge was not in just finding the source of this issue, but also giving a solution to the client that lives within the constraints.
Right. You can't tell a hotel to remove their entire ventilation system.
Exactly. You can't ask them to change things at whim. So, we helped them commission a cleaning mechanism where a small robot would go inside the ducting systems, and would clean out the specific areas.
I think that's fantastic, and then that leads us right into one of the other things we wanted to speak to you about, and that is quality of life and the impact air quality has on it. Since you've told us that in this case study you found that there was mold in the ductings, that can actually lead to quite a serious health impact. Correct. So what are some of the other sort of factors of one should monitor, and what kind of impact can it have on your quality of life?
There are people who are quite healthy, very healthy in fact, and they get introduced to problems which they never would have thought of because of the air quality in a particular environment. Like we've observed cases, like I have not observed cases under my own clientele, but we've been to so many air quality conferences that such cases do come out. One particular case was of a person that at a very young age suffered a cardiac issue, and the issue was traced to lack of oxygen.
Oh wow!
This person has been inhaling. So on further discussions, it was found that this person was living in a windowless home, and then he travels to this office, and the office has bad CO2. Almost 16 to 18 hours in a day, that person is breathing a deficient air, and that has given this young person a heart issue, right? In fact, there are enough cases that are made in newspapers by international studies that India loses over 20 billion rupees every year because of loss of productivity due to air quality issues.
Right.
So we're talking about absenteeism, we're talking about asthma flare-ups, we're talking about issues of chronic heart diseases that come up, and the time that people have to take off, and all sorts of chaos that bad air quality exhibits upon people.
Right.
So now that we've covered the kind of more detrimental effects and long-term effects of poor air quality, something I wanted to ask you about is that when you're doing air quality monitoring, you're usually coming in after the fact, right? You're coming in to solve a problem and an air quality issue that already exists. So do you think that, given that we're all having a long hard look at our built spaces right now anyway, that this could start to factor into design and even become a consideration in how we plan and use these kind of spaces based on providing good fresh air to people as well?
That is the long-term vision that I want to achieve in Southeast Asia. We want data to be used by architects, by designers, to make informed choices, not just about how buildings are designed, but in fact what materials are used. And design, I think, has a fundamental impact on air quality.
Right.
If you see a building that has great cross ventilation, it's a great investment.
Right.
It is something that will stay with you forever. So, for example, in one of the choices that we made while buying our office, and we have an office in Sakinagar. Sakinagar is not a great place when it comes to air quality.
I can attest to that as well.
Yeah, so it's not a great place. But one thing that we do have is we have an excellent cross ventilation, and we have a great breeze that flows through the entire office whenever we open our doors and windows. And for 2 to 3 times in a day, we will just cross ventilate the office completely, and it does make a difference.
And Abhinav, I think we touched upon this just a little bit, at the start of our conversation. But if you're sitting at home or you're sitting in your office, what are some symptoms that you as just either an employee of an office space, as a manager of an office space, or just as a resident of a home or a building, what are symptoms you can take notice of and say, okay, maybe this is because my air quality is not good, I need to do something to fix it?
Yeah, you're yawning too much. You feel sleepy. Your first thought process has to be, I think there is not enough fresh air. Second, I would say is that one of the things that people observe, they will start to feel the symptoms of a cold, like coughing, or you would have accumulation of mucus. So if you would have if you have any symptoms of a normal cold, and you feel that they just come for like an hour or so, very much possible that you are inhaling a lot of PM10s and PM2.5s.
That is pretty much my reaction during dust allergies. So yeah.
That's your body's reaction to it. Another thing that I have observed with the cleaning agents and chemical cleaners, you start feeling a burning sensation in your eyes. There are cleaning services available which use non-harsh chemicals. So you should use things that are good for your health and for your air quality.
And just as a follow-up, any red flags we should be, wary of when we look for solutions?
Right. So, I mean, there are a lot of solutions today, and the Indian market is now flooded with a lot of air purification solutions. Always try and question what is the core principle involved. One of the red flags that I have seen is when you ask people, how often do I need to change the filters? And people would say some kind of a number, which is like, 2 years or 1 year. That is not possible. These kind of systems need maintenance every 3 to 4 months. The filters need to be checked every 3 to 4 months. Even if they don't need to be replaced, you should check them, because you should know what the status of your filters are, because that's your air, right? Now, because the market understands, the customer doesn't want to hear things like, oh, this needs frequent maintenance. So, that's a perception that a customer takes. If it needs frequent maintenance, it must not be a good product. No. It is an air purifier. The filter needs changing. It's not that the product is bad. Your air is bad. So you need to change that filter.
Maybe just, to sort of summarize everything we've discussed in a little bit of a takeaway, Abhinav, do you have any piece of advice for those listening to our podcast and, reflecting on the stuff we've discussed? Anything you think they can take away from this and implement immediately in their homes or their offices?
Absolutely. If you haven't measured it, you can't fix it.
Right.
You always keep that in mind. If you haven't measured it, you can't fix it. That's always the first step. And that's where we tell our clients that people always have a hunch that this might be the problem. Let the measurement do that for you. The measurement will find the exact source, and you will be much closer to solving the problem. And we should not lose focus of the fact that each and every one of us deserve a good air quality, whether at our homes, whether at our offices, in our malls, in the theater, wherever we go. We should get the best air quality we deserve.
I think that's a fantastic note to end this session on. Abhinav, thank you so much for taking the time to talk with us today. And I think it's been quite an illuminating conversation. I think Yash would agree, right?
Definitely an eye-opening conversation. There are things that I'm going to look at my place and my sites and stuff also after this.
An eye-opening conversation, hopefully a lung-opening conversation as well.
Oh man.
Absolutely, guys. It was a real pleasure talking to you guys. Great questions. I was really enjoying the depth at which we went in some of these places. And I hope you guys found something useful.
Definitely.
If you enjoyed this conversation, be sure to follow Concrete Conversations on Instagram to know more about upcoming episodes and for some behind-the-scenes content.
For more deep dives into the world of Indian real estate, stay tuned for more Concrete Conversations.